Constitution. So, the Malolos Constitution are the first Philippine Constitution, the first Republican Constitution in Asia. So, it is written by Felipe Calderon Iroca and Felipe Buencamino as a pair alternative by the Malolos Congress by Apolinario Mabini and Pedro Paterno. So, the Malolos Constitution has 93 articles divided into 14 titles with 8 transitory provisions and 1 unnumbered article. So, there are 3 distinct powers of the political constitution, which are the legislative, judicial, and the executive. And the 1899 Malolos Constitution was never enforced due to the ongoing war. The Philippines was effectively a territory of the United States upon the signing of the Treaty of Paris between the Spain and the United States. So now we will continue the...
And we have also talked last meeting about the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution, or also known as the 1935 Constitution. So, 1935 Commonwealth Constitution provided a legal basis of the Commonwealth government, which was considered as a transitional government in order for the preparation of the Filipinos for their independence. So, this constitution was established when the Philippines was under the United States of America. So, along with the Commonwealth Constitution, we have also tackled the different acts of the United States Congress, which was adopted in the Philippines. And this include the first is the Philippine Organic Act of 1902. So, this act is established enabling the controlization or for the control of the civilization. So, this includes two elected houses. So, the first elected lower house is the Philippine Assembly, and the second is the Philippine Commission. So, later on, the Philippine Organic Act of 1902 was replaced, which is the Philippine Autonomy Act of 1906, or also what we call the Jones Law. So, the Jones Law was involved din sa ang diba, I stated earlier that there are 2 elected houses, right? The Philippine Assembly and the Philippine Commission. So, in this law, giusa na siya, and now that is what we call now the House of Representatives. So, now let us uncover more of the acts of the United States of America Congress that is being adopted in the Philippines, which will be discussed by teacher Larissa.
So now let's tackle about the Hair House Cutting Act of 1932. So Hair House Cutting Act of 1932 was the first setting of specific date from independence from the United States. So this law is the result of the independence of the Philippines by Manuel Quezon and Sergio Osmeña. So this law was credited by 3 persons, namely Butler B. Hare, a former representative of the United States, and Harry B. Hose, a former member of the Senate, and the last is Bronson M. Cathay, the former senator of the United States. So Hair House Cutting Act of 1932 was the first U.S. law passed setting a process and a date for the Philippines to gain independence of the United States. So Hair House Cutting Act of 1932 was passed by the United States Congress on December 1932, and however, it was enacted on January 1933. So this law is the nahimong road of the independence of the country in the Philippines. So this law promised Philippine independence after 10 years, but reserved several military and naval bases for the United States, as well as imposed tariffs and quotas on the Philippine imports. So the Hair House Cutting Act of 1932 there was 2 main reasons why this law was created. So first is the Great Depression of America that was experienced during 1930s, and which is the America feared the foreigners ang Filipino nga malabuan ilahang mga imports or products nga Second is the fear of Filipino leaders nga they was eager to run or own a government. So although Heroes Cutting Act of 1932 has a positive impact sa Philippines kay however, the Philippine legislator Manuel L. Quezon kay rejected the law for the reason katong reserve military or detention sa military US or naval bases. So as a result, the Heroes Cutting Act of 1932 was replaced by which is the Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1934. So Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1934 was also called Philippine Commonwealth and Independence Act of the Philippines. And the Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1932 kay mao ni siya last nga act sa American period. So the person that was authorized on this act was Millard A. Tidings, na former representative sa Democrat sa United States from Maryland, and John McDuffie, former sa the Senate sa United Congress from Alabama, and the Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1932 was signed by the U.S. President, which is Franklin D. Roosevelt. So, Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1932 was passed by the United States Congress that provide authority and define mechanism for the establishment of a formal constitution by constitutional convention. So, after the law passed on the United Congress, kaning nga law nakadawat ay receive many support of the Filipino aspiration as well as together with Manuel L. Quezon. Si Quezon, ni-fought sa dani na Tidings-McDuffie Act of 1932 because this act is aiming for the independence of the Philippines against the American colonial rule. So, as a result, ang Tidings-McDuffie Act ay i-approve sa United States Congress pag May 1934. So, overall, the Philippine Organic Act, Jones Law, and Heroes Cutting Act, and Tidings-McDuffie Act played a vital role in the Philippines. It is shaping the trajectory of Philippine governance and the independence, marking the key milestones in the country's history and its transition from colonial status to independent nation. So now let's proceed.
Okay, so now let's go back to our topic class, which is the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution. So the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution, or this constitution, is created the Commonwealth of the Philippines from 1935. So this constitution was established in 1935 and ended in 1946. So it is like what I said earlier. This constitution is a transitional administration to prepare the country towards its full achievement of independence. So later on, when the Philippines will become or will be free from the Americans, from any other country who colonized the Philippines, kanang ibaw na mo stand on their own ang Philippines without any reliance to any other countries or to any countries who are colonizing them. So that is the purpose of the Constitution, or the 1935 Constitution. Another thing is that class, the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution was originally provided for unicameral National Assembly. Now, what do you mean, ma'am, when we say unicameral? Unicameral. So when we say unicameral, this is a system of government where it only has a one legislative house or chamber. So ang kanina included siya sa 1935 Commonwealth Constitution that both of the president and vice president only has 6 elected year term in the service. Okay? So 6-year term in the service, and hindi na sila pwede ma-re-elect pag-bali in that di ba? Particularly
Yes.
in political, yes. And later on, kani ang 1935 Constitution, ayahan na change. So now, women have also the right to vote. So they also have the right, not just to vote, but they also have the right to be educated, to go into educational system. They also have the right to read and to write. So another thing now, so the draft of the Constitution was approved by the Constitution Convention on February 8, 1935. And later on March 25, 1935, it was ratified by the U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt. So before the so when the Philippines was under the United States of America, the USA indulged an independent nation to us, so which is why it required for the Philippines to have their own constitution. So mauna na natay 1935 Constitution. However, the process is not dili easy ang process kay ni undergo pa og daghang process ang 1935 Constitution. So ang draft niya pag-una need pa siya i-approve sa Constitution Convention. So which happened when na-approve po siya pag February 8, 1935. And later on na-ratify po siya sa President sa USA on March 25, 1935. Okay, so on May, the Filipino people also ratified this Constitution. Okay, so sige kung mention of ratified, also din ratified ma'am. So need to say ratified, it was approved by the Filipino people way back on May 1935. And it was fully enacted or effective when November 1935 came. So on September 16, 1935, the electoral of the vice or for the position of president and vice president happened. So it was attended by millions of people. And one of the representatives for those positions, particularly the president and vice president, is Manuel L. Quezon and Sergio Osmeña. And luckily or fortunately, both of them won the election. Okay, so now sa may ilang na-contribute sa 1935 Constitution or what are the amendments that they do in the 1935 Constitution? So, kani silang duha because both of them are devoted to serve our country. They prolong the years in service of the President and Vice President. So, not particularly nga ilang itaas ang year, but rather ilahang gihimo nga 4-year, but pwede sila ma-re-elected. Pwede sila ma-participate in the electoral or election again. So now let's move on and know more about the different programs that have a very huge advantages to the Filipinos, which were established or programs of Manuel L. Quezon and Sergio Osmeña, which will be discussed by Chair Eliza.
Let's get to know the programs under the President Manuel Quezon and the Vice President Sergio Osmeña. But first is the National Defense Act. The National Defense Act is the purpose of this act was to create an independent Philippine military. So kaning act, it aims to protect the security of the country and the establishment of armed forces of the Philippines consisting of soldiers. So second is the Women's Suffrage Act. Women's Suffrage Act, women have the right to vote in a political election. So ilang program kay they have ilang program kay ang opportunity to sa women nga na rights to vote kay as we all know kay Spanish colonial period kay and mga generations pa nato nga pag period kay ang mga women kay walay rights to vote. So kanina program ito sila kay to have the right for us women kay nga ay right to vote. Third is the katarungang panlipunan. The katarungang panlipunan is the responsibility of the government to safeguard the welfare of the people against the abuse of citizens and give the people what to serve. So ang katarungang panlipunan kay it focus and highlighting that the government the government has the responsibility to ensure the rights of people against the abusive citizen. So, fourth type, pagtatag ng pampansang liga. So, under the program, President Manuel Quezon and Vice President Sergio Osmeña actually was talk about the dialects sa atong country, which is Tagalog dialects. But after several days, kay ang gi-approve na atong national, ang atong pambansang wika kay Tagalog. So last is the Homestead. Last is the Homestead Act. So Homestead Act refers to land of people. So kaning act kay ang rights nga ang people kay magkatagya o mga yuta that people can live in. Let's go back to
Okay, so let's proceed to the primary source or the preamble of the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution. Okay, so maklaro na ba tanan class dito?
Not really.
Ako na lang magbasa ha. So, let me give you the definition first of preamble. So when we say preamble, in other terms, this serves as a preliminary statement, or kung ato pa siyang literature, this is the prologue of the story part. So the preamble of the 1935 Constitution stated that the Filipino people, imploring the aid of divine providence in order to establish a government that shall embody their ideals, conserve and develop the patrimony of the nation, promote the general welfare, and secure to themselves and their posterity the blessings of independence under the regime of justice, liberty, and democracy, do ordain and promulgate this Constitution. So all in all, no, the Commonwealth Constitution contributes a lot to in terms of our democratic nation that we have nowadays. So, because aside from that, there are changes in our system, such as in the government and in the administrative or administrations. It has also affected the lives of Filipinos, like for instance, their perceptions, values, and their livelihoods. So, before, let us have a comparison. So before when we are still under the Spanish colonial period, we can say, or we can have this conclusion that the rights of the Filipinos before are limited. Diba? We don't have enough rights. Gamay na gani nga action sa mga Filipinos nga nagpakita o kanang ilang gibuhat ang ilang kagustuhan, naada yung kay katumbas nga kapakisahan or punishment from the Spaniards or Spanish government. So the Spaniards before have a very strict or rigid rules in terms of their colonization of the Philippines. However, if we compare to the United States of America, the United States of America gave the Filipino a full